everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do 3 more DIY Dollar Tree farmhouse makeovers. First one we're going to do is we're going to zhuzh up this picture frame from the Dollar Tree. We're going to use the Dollar Tree's chalkboard. This was gifted to me, as well as the pine the pine contact paper, the quick cover contact paper is what I was trying to say, as well as some white paint. White paint is my choice. You could use gray, you could use black, you can leave it black if you want to, whatever you want to do. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to take the plastic off and the back off. The back of this is just two-sided black. It doesn't have an easel on it or anything. It comes with 2 of the clothespins. And just like the regular backs to all the picture frames and stuff. So now it's up to you if you decide if you want to paint it or not. I would not suggest spray paint unless you want to cover your piece of jute. That's why I'm going for a dry brush. And on this particular frame, I'm going to show you 2 different looks. I'm going to show you how it looks dry brushed, sort of that weathered antique look, as well as after it's done I'm going to show you it completely covered white. So hold on a second because my camera is about to cut out on me and go. So once again, inferior equipment. No, I'm kidding. My storage was full and my video stopped recording, but here's what we have so far. Here's what you missed. I just finished whitewashing this frame. I did a, you don't do a good when you're whitewashing to antique something. You don't do it fully pretty, whatever. You do it haphazardly. And then I brought it over to different contact papers, and I'm going to show you. These are my choices. I have let me get them all. I have this whitewashed one that's really pretty. That I got as a gift, as well as this wood one that's very pretty that I got as a gift. And then these 2 are the Dollar Tree ones. And what I did was I held each one up to it to see which one I liked the best. And then I decided that I liked the pine one the best, with a knot. And this is how that looks. You can really not even see the jute really well. It kind of blends into the pine. But once I put it in there, I realized I don't like the white finish. So I'm going to put you guys down on the stand, finish recording. I'm going to paint this probably solid white, and you can see that here. Yeah, so what she said. But I also want to show you that the way I covered it with the contact paper is I cut the edges clean, because if I ever want to flip it over and make it black again, I can. I didn't want to have the contact paper wrap around. Didn't really think that that was that important. In case like I said, in case I ever want to flip it back over to black to get maybe a more elegant look, if I put black and white pictures in there, I think that would look really nice as well. So what I'm using here, even though I showed Apple Barrel's white craft paint, I'm actually using the chalk paint I was gifted. This is just Waverly's chalk paint. I finished using my jar of chalk paint, and before I make any more, I'm going to go ahead and use this. Was gifted to me as well. Okay, and this gives pretty nice coverage as well. You're just going to do I'm going to just do 1 coat, and I'm not looking for it to be a perfect coat either. I still do want it to feel like a little aged, just not quite as aged as I did with the dry brush technique. Okay, now of course once you're done, before you're done, you want to make sure you don't have any pooling paint in the inside corners, as well as be mindful of painting the string, the jute string that goes across it. Okay, so I just want to make sure you get clean edges. And when it comes to painting frames, I like to take my brush in the corners and match that angle, and then go with the grain of what would be wood if it was wood. Okay. Now with the paint on the front mostly dry, actually it really is dry, that chalk paint does dry really rather fast, just turn it over, clean up whatever big pooling of paint you may have in the back, depending on how well you covered with your drippies. Okay, and then you want to set it aside to dry, because you definitely don't want to try to put this frame in any of the boards while this frame is still wet, because you could ruin your pictures. You could also ruin the board. Okay, and then we're going to return the the contact paper facing forward, put our clips on, and now what do you want to add to it? I thought it would look really cute if it was not only a wood grain country frame, but it also held that chalkboard. So I always was taught that you want to prime your chalkboards with some regular chalk. You just lay the chalk on its side and you rub it back and forth across the surface. And what that does is, if you've ever used a chalkboard like this, even with chalk, the very first time you go to erase it, you may see some like ghost letters left over. That's because you haven't primed your chalkboard, okay? And then what I like about priming the chalkboard too is it kind of gives it that school sort of gray. You know, chalkboards are black, and then once they're used, they sort of turn like gray. And then it adds that as well. So now I'm just taking the chalk. You can use a chalk pen, a chalk writer, a washable writer. That's what this is. This is the kind that it won't come off when you dry erase. It only comes off when you wet erase. So then I can write menu with that, and then I can dry erase the actual menu for the day. So what we had that night, oh, I didn't wait for it to dry. Ooh, definitely wait for it to dry before you try to rub off old chalk. But what we have that day was grilled cheese and tomato soup. Woohoo! Who doesn't love grilled cheese and tomato soup? Raise your hand in the comments if you do. So then I wanted to go ahead and just clip this on to the frame, just anywhere I thought would be even. You can also put the little recipe card on there or anything like that. You can add to it, all right? Now I want to also show you that you can just hang pictures, inspirational messages, or anything on there as well. Okay? You can use it just for a picture frame. It'd be really, like I said, really cute to hold notes for the family. They sell lots more clothespins at the Dollar Tree that you could use as well. The next project, we're going to do 2 mini topiaries. It's a 4-pack of styrofoam bowls, 2-pack of mini clay pots, some white paint, some Spanish moss, and we're going to use some of the lace ribbon. So the first thing we're going to do is going to paint the clay pots. This clay pots comes 3 to a pack. The styrofoam bowls come 4 to a pack. So this project is the cost of $2 for these materials. Then we're going to use some Spanish moss and some lace ribbon, which probably equal about 25 cents each because we don't use a lot of it. Okay? So what I'm doing is I'm just painting the outsides of these clay pots. I'm not trying to be neat because when it comes to farmhouse country decor, you know, we don't want to be neat, right? So I'm showing you these 2 baby topiaries because not only was I making them from my fireplace, but I wanted to show you that there are very simple ways to make these projects. The one thing that I did not tell you that we're going to use in the instructions before, was I'm actually using the stem for some of the big flowers from the Dollar Tree. This is actually the stem of dogwood. It is got wire in it. I'm just going to use about 4-inch pieces, and I'm just going to use these styrofoam bowls 4-pack. What I'm going to do basically is I'm going to shove one in for the top, and I'm going to shove the one in the pot for the bottom. But first what I'm going to do is I'm just basically taking the 2 pieces of dogwood branch that I used, sticking one in the top of the globe, in the top of the topiary, and then gluing the heck out of it. So if you have been with my channel for a little bit, you know that I'm very fond of Sarah Jane from Chic on the Cheap, who had suggested throwing all of her Spanish moss in a box and cutting it up whenever she's doing a project. Well, I took it just one step further, and I got this plastic shoebox from the Dollar Tree, and I put all my Spanish moss in there and just cut it up. And then I'm just working right out of that box. It's so much easier. Thank you so much, Sarah Jane. I can't tell you what a great tip this is. But to just work over whatever you cut goes right back in the box. There is very, very little cleanup at the end, just sort of like splash over. But compared to what it used to be, OMG, where has this idea been my whole life? Okay. So I'm just going to repeat it with both balls. We've covered stuff in Spanish moss plenty of times before. What I actually have in this box is a combination of the floral moss, not Spanish moss, and reindeer moss. This is just green floral moss and green reindeer moss. And I kind of have ripped it all to shreds and tossed it around, and then cut it up and then tossed it around just to get a mix of both textures. I really like the way that it looks together. I feel like it looks more natural. Okay? And then, of course, glue and trim, glue and pat and trim, and glue and pat and trim. You just want to repeat that till you get the shape and fullness or lack thereof that you desire. Some people like a really tight topiary ball. Some people like it more natural. I kind of like it more natural. I don't want it to be a perfectly round globe. I want it to be a little bit more free-flowing, okay? Now, once you've done this to both topiaries, or both tops, I should say, you want to go ahead and do fill in for the bottoms, okay? How do you do that? That's so easy. We shove one of these other styrofoam balls. Like I said, it's a 4-pack. We shove them down inside the clay pot, and then we put the topiary branch in it before we cover it with moss. And then we do the same thing. We just throw some glue around it, throw some moss on there, pat it down really well, and then trim. When you go to do your second one, just compare it to your first one to make sure they're at approximately the same height before you go ahead and shove the stick down any further, and then repeat with the second one. And you just want to trim around. I'm sorry we didn't get the trimming on the first one. I kind of pulled it a little far towards me. Okay? Now the next thing, once that's all done, we want to go ahead and add the lace. What I want to do with this lace is I'm just going to glue at the very beginning and end, and I'm going to let the lace hang naturally. The clay pot tapers in, the lace is not. So what I like to do is I basically put a tiny bit of glue. I'm making sure that the top of the lace is wrapped around the top of the pot, and then putting a little dot of glue at the end. So this lace actually is not the entire length, the entire width of the lace is not glued all the way. I don't know what I'm saying. Help me. Do you guys know what I'm saying? Basically, the top of the lace is what's touching the clay pot. The rest of it is sort of hanging down. That's what I was trying to say. And now I've taken 2 pieces, approximately the same size, and I'm just going to make 2 bows. These are bows like you tie your shoes. That's how I describe it. Anybody could tie their shoes, can make this kind of a bow. And then you just want to play with it back and forth. You pull loops, you pull tails, you pull loops, you pull tails until it becomes a nice even bow that you like. If you have to twist any of the loops or any of the tails so that the lace lays flat, go ahead and do that. But it's basically a combination of pulling and pushing and pulling and pushing. And then, of course, I'm going to dog ear the bottoms, and I'm going to glue them right on where I started and ended that lace. And here's how they look on my new farmhouse mantle. I really do love them. They just add that little bit of color that I needed up there by the white brick. All right, next project, we're going to take one of these cute signs from the Dollar Tree, as well as some of the chain from these baskets and some white craft paint, as well as some other colored craft paints. So the first thing we're going to do is just spin this sign around. We're going to make paint right on the back. It will be 2-sided. We're going to hang it on our newly designed hook up there. Yeah, because you guys know what I'm talking about, right? From the sign, the hanging sign we made the other day, we're going to hang it on that. So first you want to do is you want to peel the sticker. I know that there's plenty of techniques. Thank you to everybody who's come up and given me tons of advice on how to remove the stickers, but I'm just going to do it old-fashioned way, you know, slow. Okay, and then we're going to put it on a clear cutting mat that we can use to paint with. This is that same Waverly chalk paint that I was gifted, but white homemade chalk paint or apple barrel white will work just as well with this. As actually the white apple barrel, if you're going to do this painting technique, may work a tiny bit better because it stays wet a little longer. The chalk paint actually does dry rather quickly, which I guess is good if you're in a rush to get your project done. Otherwise maybe not so much. But what we're going to use for this particular one is we're going to make it like sweet tea, and we're going to use sort of a coffee colored, which is kind of funny that I'm saying that, sweet tea and coffee colored, but sort of a coffee colored paint that I got from Apple Barrel. I'll put the name of it in the description box down below. And I'm just going to squirt some on the middle of the board while the paint's still wet. And if you've ever seen a mason jar sign that's painted, Usually like to leave a little bit of what's glass because mason jars are kind of thick. So if you were looking at a glass of liquid up close, you would see that there is a thick edge of glass on both sides. So you're not going to want to spread the liquid all the way to the edge. You're going to want to leave some of the mason jar around all the edges of the liquid. But I just went with the shape of the mason jar bottom. I went back and forth, left and right, and I got that sort of muddly looking color. Now we're going to make the mason jar blue, just a little bit of blue glass colors. So we're going to take some of the white paint, a big blob of blue, and a tiny, tiny drop of yellow. And we're going to mix it till we get almost like a aqua colored. You know, if you know that glass green, it's not quite sea glass, but like mason jar glass green. And I'm not painting all the way to the edges. I don't know if you could see that as well on the, because it is such a light color. That I'm kind of leaving a white edge around all of the blue, sort of like what would be like light reflecting on it. All right, and I'm adding, basically going from the outsides into the jar. So if the middle of the jar has like a blank space, that's okay. And the same thing with the neck. You know, you want to make it darker on the edges, lighter towards the middle. Okay. And now I'm taking 2 pieces of scrap paper, and the paint is mostly dry. It's just a tiny bit wet spots, but I'm just taking them and I'm extending the straight edges of the straw. I'm doing this because I want to make sort of an abstract looking straw. I've just taken some red paint. This is like wasn't even really good red paint. I didn't mix it or anything, so you can see it's kind of watery colored, which is kind of the look I was after. And I'm just creating some diagonal stripes. Ta-da, a straw. But you can do any kind of straw you want to. You could use washi tape. If you have some really cute washi tape that looks like a straw, that would be really cute as well. Just saying, just an idea, just a technique. Okay? And now I'm just filling in whatever the paper took off, touching up as I needed. And now when the straw is dry, I would like to go back over it with some of the blue. But of course, I don't have any patience, so I end up messing it up. It's no big deal. But when it comes to doing the threads on the top of the mason jar, I just take some of the white paint I work out of the cap, and I'm just making basic highlights, basically whatever would be on the threads, the highlights of the jar. Okay, also where the threaded neck meets the bottle. And now I'm adding a highlight to the actual jar, and by this it's just like an apostrophe or a comma. I mean, that's really all it is to create that sort of curvature. And I'm just going to add a tiny one on the opposite direction and the other side. Okay, and then without messing anything else up, we're going to set it off to let it dry. We're going to come back later. This is about an hour later, and I'm taking just a really thin Sharpie. You cannot even hardly see it here, only in real life. And I'm just drawing the faint edges of that straw. You can see it a little bit better there, right? And now I'm just taking a regular Sharpie and I'm spelling it wrong. I've actually put the word raise. I forgot the I. So I'm just going to squeeze it in there. Please don't tell anybody. But this is going to say raised on sweet tea and Jesus. It's for a friend and I think she's going to love it. And this is just something that is totally her. But you can put whatever you want. There were so many different signs on Pinterest with different sayings that had sweet tea and front porch, sweet tea and the front porch is the southern way, just so many different things you can't even imagine. And I'm just handwriting this. Of course, you want to stencil it, print it, transfer it, Cricut it, whatever you guys want to do to get your words on there. Please, by all means, go ahead and do you. Do you, boo. And then, of course, I'm making them sort of faux calligraphy thickness. I don't know how to describe that. Okay. And then once I have all of my double lines done, then I'm going to go ahead and add the chain. So now this chain came off of the basket. I used the basket for another DIY coming up. You guys will see that in a day or two. But this is the chain from one of the hanging planters. The hooks on them are a lot smaller than the hooks when you just buy the chain by itself, as well as the chain is actually just a single loop chain. The other chain was much thicker. It was a double loop chain, so it's a little bit stronger as well. Okay, but what you can do is you're going to open up the clips just like we did on the other side. We want to make sure that your holes are not painted closed and they're nice and big, and you want to feed those clips into your sign. I'm using my pliers. This is what I had to do because I don't really have hand strength sometimes. I don't have really hand grip sometimes. So I'm using them to open up that clip, and I'm sorry it's going so fast and off camera, but you saw me do it the other day with the egg sign, and it's pretty much the same thing. It's just a smaller clip. And then I'm feeding it through the hole, and you want to make sure that the clip open and close part is up where the chain can connect, okay? So spin it around so that the opening is up towards the top. And I left the other side of the sign because why not? It's really cute. I think she'll really like it. She can switch it back and forth if she wants to. She can leave it hanging on her porch with both sides facing out. It's totally would be beautiful either way. Now the one thing we're going to do different with this one is we're going to connect the two chains to the hook on both sides and then hang both chains in the same spot on the hanger. So it hangs there. That's just another option of hanging it. I wanted to share that with you on this particular video. So you could see here they're both hung at the same time. And that's it, everybody. I hope you really enjoyed these makeovers. They were so much fun to do, and I love having them hung up in my house. I'm telling you, I'm so excited. So if you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments down below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share with friends and family, anybody who might be interested in learning how to make any of these projects. And if you haven't yet, click subscribe, and when you do, a little bell will pop up. When you ring that bell, YouTube will let you know whenever I upload a new video. And as always, take care, God bless, and we'll see you next time. Bye!